All right, this is the November 7th meeting of the OpenStack Technical Committee. The minutes are being kept in IRC. As always, this is held under the Open Infra Code of Conduct. We have all the technical committee members here except for James Page, who is a listed absence. Looks like we're also missing spots, so I think might have a standing conflict. I don't know how DST impacts that. And Frickler, who I think generally doesn't attend video meetings. It's 3 minutes past. I'm going to give them a couple more minutes to get here before continuing on with the agenda.
So I was looking at the log or the history, and I guess Christy was just way better than you at always putting that link there. But that's where I, go to get it. I can fetch it out of email, but it's easier for me to, since I'm already going to the agenda page, for it to be there.
That was a reasonably heated debate at one point about where those links all went. And so I think my problem was more overthinking what the places were to put it instead of just putting it all the places. And I'm just going to put it all the places next time. And if it becomes
all the places would be good,
change the password and start being more worried about it. I've got no problem putting the link all the places. So. All right, gonna move on. The first topic on the agenda after roll call is follow up on track action items. There was one, and that was for me to write up a short document on sort of pros and cons on holding these meetings in the OpenDev hosted MeetPad Jitsi instance instead of Zoom. I made some notes around that. You can sort of read those notes, do your own thinking on it or conclusioning. I would say that my conclusion after reading it is that it's really close. I'm a little concerned about the lack of fallback, such as no phone number there, and the fact that there seems to be a lot of cases where there's like, I'm not sure if this exists, and there was like a comment of, oh, it exists and it's here. So
that's maybe me because I'm not really cultured about that, but also with the GC Meet that I tried for the PTG first, I was having some problems with trying to find other ways to use other links, because, for example, it provides the Etherpad, that's good, but if, for example, if I click on some link, then basically it continues to use the Etherpad and it doesn't share my screen. Maybe I was wrong, but that's also the problem that I had.
Yeah, I mean, my statement for an action was going to be, I suggest TC members take a look at this, develop your own opinions. My thought is that it sounds like the Open Dev folks, the Open Infra Foundation, I don't know who technically runs the PTG, is thinking about using MeetPad as the hosting location for the next PTG by default. And then people would have to opt into using Zoom instead if they wanted to do that. I would suggest we wait and see how that works out before we necessarily take action ourselves, especially given the fact that for some of the more advanced things, it seems like it may be a little bit less discoverable, even if you toss aside sort of some of the technical trade-offs you'd have to make to go that direction. So that's my thought. It's not something we have to decide now. I wanted to make notes. If someone wants to take up that mantle and propose a change based on those, they're welcome to. What you got, Dan?
So I think that their foundation deciding what they decided was based on the policy that has since been reverted, if I'm not mistaken. And I also thought that this past PTG was expected to be primarily MeetPad, if not, if possible. And it seems like almost everybody except Glance used Zoom, and I attended the Glance stuff, and it was definitely less good as a result. So is the next PTG actually supposed to be, or is it that since
So, well, so I can't speak for Kendall, but no, the plan wasn't to have this one be default meatpad because there wasn't enough upfront planning and testing and all that to make it happen. So Zoom was the default this time, and that was always the plan. The goal is that by communicating it early, we can, have it be more successful for next time. I think, yes, that was part of the concern when people were talking about this, was the policy that they apparently rolled back. But there's also a lot of logistical work that has to be done to set up 15 or whatever, I don't know the exact number, Zoom rooms, and get the credentials sent out to everyone and deal with the licensing or however the payment system works, right? So it's not just because of the AI learning policy that has been rolled back. It's also to try and reduce some of the overhead in just organizing the event and kind of making it work for everyone. Every PTG, there's like 100 questions of like, how do I share my screen? You need admin. Well, that was in the email you received. Oh, that was in a different email address, right? Like it's a lot of that they're trying to reduce, I think.
Okay. Can Meetpad actually do screen sharing? I thought it was just whatever the Meetpad was.
Yeah, 100%.
Okay.
No, actually, that's the question that I had, because, for example, when I used Meetpad, I was able to provide like the Etherpad that we were using. But for example, when we wanted to discuss with the operators, it was another Etherpad. But then that would be meaning that basically we'll need to use another Medpad ring then.
Can anyone share their screen? Because I didn't see any of
Yes.
those controls. Okay. It
Yes.
didn't work for me, so
One
Okay.
thing
I
that
don't know why.
one thing that I realized as part of this research, as well as I'm a pretty avid Firefox user, and some of the options specifically around screen recording didn't even show up if you're in Firefox. So
Gotcha.
if you're kind of like, this is weird, I don't see all the options in Meetpad, try loading it up in Chrome, which for me is another kind of pretty significant downside to Meetpad, because for me, like if I have to use Chrome to access Meetpad, I'm sort of losing some of the benefit of having to route through the,
Right.
the proprietary tool anyway.
Does it because I did one of the sessions I attended on one of the days I was in Chrome, and I'm wondering if maybe it doesn't, like, does it handle the multi-monitor sharing properly? Like maybe it wasn't offering that to me because I have 3 monitors.
So by default, the first option they give you is to share a window, but you can share it by workspace as well. I don't know if you stretch a window over multiple desktop or over multiple monitors, or workspace over multiple monitors, if it will work, because I only use a single monitor.
I didn't even have the option, so I just assumed that it wasn't possible. But I didn't ask.
I think it's important to note you can still use Chromium, which is maybe not as good as Firefox from a proprietary standpoint, but it's included in Debian, right? Like it meets Debian's threshold, and so
Debian strips out the phone home stuff in Chromium.
Sure, but my point is that there's a viable browser that respects your freedom and open source. Like it's not like Firefox doesn't allow screen recording, therefore it's just as bad as Zoom, right? Like that's just categorically wrong.
It's what I'm using to connect to the Zoom call right now, because Firefox doesn't handle Zoom's web client very well either.
I think so. To address Sylvan's concern, yes, the embedded document is URL specific, and I think you should just use a different call for that, right? Like if you've got a different Etherpad, you just jump over to a different, like it should be trivial. But screen sharing is independent of the embedded document.
Okay, well, that's good to know. I'll have to
functionalities.
try to figure out why. But switching to another document, I think, is not reasonable for PTG, really, because it's like the room, it's linked, and part of the whole point is like not losing the audience that is here and camped out and whatever. So we would have to just do it in the same thing.
But then you revert back to no worse than Zoom, right? Because in Zoom, you're either doing a desktop share of the Etherpad, or you're not even looking at the Etherpad at all. You can do that with Meetpad as well. Like it's It's functionally better than Zoom if you were using a dedicated Etherpad because it's an embedded document. You don't have the screen sharing. I can be in the call. I can edit it as we go. Like from that document perspective, it's better. But if you decide that that doesn't work for you, it's no different than Zoom where you're going to do a desktop share or a window share and share a different document or not worry about the document at all.
Yeah. That's what actually the problem that I had is maybe maybe that's because I didn't have time to test it before the PTG. But indeed, I can see I can share my screen. I can also like close the document. I can do a lot of things by that. So yeah, basically, okay, cool with me then.
So
My bad.
one thing, like, yeah, having the open source, is a good idea. But if the Zoom is being like in question due to their whatever policy change or whatever, can we try like other tool like Google Meet or anything else? Like if Frickler or anyone else have an issue with Zoom, so they can at least join, right? So
Cinder used BlueJeans, not this last time, but in previous ones, and the tool lets you add an arbitrary location in the PTG, right? Like it's not saying you must use Zoom or Meetpad. It's like, here are the tools that we're trying to make easier for you. But if you go off and use BlueJeans or whatever else, like I don't think anyone is stopping that.
yeah,
Somebody
I'm
used
just
the
saying like
big blue
if
button
Zoom
last year, I don't remember who.
Yeah, I'm just saying like if Meetpad, whatever like the feature we need doesn't have yet or not, whatever, we should not stick to Zoom for that reason. We have other paid, already paid or non-open source tooling also. So Zoom can be always, be replaced by them first, and then
Oh,
Meetpad.
so if you're wanting the foundation to coordinate and pay for and do all that, you'll have to talk to Kendall about that, right?
No,
Like,
I'm just saying for TC meeting video call, obviously foundation level thing is the separate forum and separate discussion. Just for the TC video call, whatever we are discussing. PTG is obviously we can give the feedback and discussion there.
Yeah, that is exactly where I was going to go, is try to circle the discussion back. This is about venue for the TC meeting. I think that we've had some useful discussion here around what the limitations are, what the limitations aren't. There's an Etherpad there with some technical notes. I think there is a potential here that Jitsi or Meetpad could do the trick. I'll be honest, I don't feel passionately one way or the other enough to lead a change. If someone does feel that way and wants to write it up, they're welcome to, and we can, debate it there as far as I'm concerned. If there are other comments about this, I'm happy to entertain them, but I suspect that we might be better off moving on to the next topic.
But just one thing, like that's good point, we can discuss and all, but one thing we should change immediately is from the Zoom, because one of the TC member is not able to join Zoom. So either we use Google Meet or whatever.
I'm quite sure that
I
Frickler is not going to join anything that's not fully open source. So Google Meet is not going to do it for him.
I also think that there's a false assumption necessarily here that it is the venue of the video meeting and not the fact that it's a video meeting itself. In a conversation I had, it was brought to my attention that this is just essentially extremely late in Europe. And the quote was something along the lines of "too late for a video meeting in Europe."
Yeah,
so
that's the reason.
I think it's just simply, a myriad of issues making the video meeting.
Yeah, maybe we can check with
unreliable.
him, but what I heard is, I think because of the Zoom, that is his first,
That's not been stated
reason.
directly or publicly, and I would rather us not speculate about the motives of another TC member when, like, it's hard to judge why other people are doing what they're doing. I've had conversations about this in DM before, because I think it's best if we're all active in all the venues we can be in. And like I said, I came to the conclusion in those conversations that it was not a specific thing to Zoom or Google Meet. And if I thought that a switch to Jitsi would get more TC participation in this meeting venue, the once a month, it probably would be something that I would care enough about to go write up, quite frankly. But I don't think that will make the difference here. If we find out that's different and they're willing to say so, then, hey, let's go for it. Because I think that makes it a little more meaningful for me.
Yeah, I'm just pinging him on TC channel if whenever he comes, so he can reply. But honestly saying, like, if he's not due to Zoom only, if he's not joining, then we should immediately switch it to something else. If the video call is the issue, timing is the issue, that's so obviously it's okay. Then we can continue definitely.
All right, just putting a conclusion there in the minutes. And now we move on to our next topic, which is gate health check.
I don't have anything very specific to offer. Nova is experiencing a sudden flaky test that I think is our fault and is suddenly becoming an issue that it wasn't before, and I'm not entirely sure why. But that's our deal. The token caching client patch merged, and someone has asserted that that has made something worse, which I don't follow the logic on. And it's been discussed. I'm not sure if I still have that bug open, but so that might be a thing. I'm skeptical myself, but might be something that changes something. Other than that, I feel like things are just kind of doing their usual, slowly sliding backwards a little bit, tiny little bit at a time, getting a little worse and worse. We are still merging stuff. It's not terrible, but you know, it took us over a week to land Sylvan's job change, which, you know, didn't have any functional code in it. And that's pretty frustrating and not a good sign. So, but other than that, I don't have anything very specific.
From other things, we today discovered that there is some issue coming with SQL Alchemy from master branch. Back apparently is because of the version of SQL Alchemy, which has 2.1.0 B1, and this B1 is causing some problems with version utils. So it impacts for sure Neutron Gate, because we run some unit test job with SQL Alchemy from master, and Designate is also doing same thing. So yeah, maybe other projects as well. I don't know.
How does it manifest? What's the symptom?
Basically there is some value error triggered, exception triggered during the unit test. So
okay, I haven't seen that on.
I think it started today. So yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I have not noticed that yet. Yeah, other than that, yeah, I have not noticed any consistent failure on Tempest Gate side also.
With the SQL Alchemy issue, pip by default shouldn't install beta or alpha or RC, etc. All of those should be explicit opt-ins, not default installation candidates. So it's curious that
this is for jobs where SQL Alchemy is installed from master on purpose.
Oh well then.
So it's not for it's not for every job. It's not like all gates are broken. No, it's just for jobs which are testing with SQL Alchemy master and
2.0, right? 2.x.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I thought that you were implying that we had a new 1.4 release that had broken something.
No.
Okay, good.
No. It's just master, but it impacts at least Neutron and Designate, and maybe other projects are also running jobs like that. So.
And chances are that when they do make the release, this is something that, you know, if it's not addressed beforehand, it's something that will have to be fixed, like broadly, right? Because this is a beta, you know. Anyway.
Well, just to be clear, I don't think it's a problem once it's no longer a beta, right? Because the problem is about the release number and not about something else. But anyway, let's not discuss that.
Oh, I see. It's literally the version is the problem. I get it.
Yes.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't get that either. So I thought that was 0B1, like a binary representation coming back in a query or something, but yeah. So that that's the new super strict, like we decided what your version numbers have to look like thing, I assume. Like all of the Ubuntu packages fail this requirement if they're not modified because they all have like Ubuntu 1 in the version number.
Yeah, and it looks like, looking at this trace spec, it's because SQL Alchemy is using Oslo utils, version utils. Either that or we're monkey patching things in somehow.
SQL Alchemy is?
That's why. That's because version utils doesn't support if you have some version that's like B1. That's why.
Yep.
That's why
But
the problem.
it's not SQL Alchemy, it's Oslo DB, SQL Alchemy module inside of Oslo DB, I think.
Oh yeah,
But,
yeah, absolutely.
but
Yeah.
why would that anyway? You should never be enforcing version numbers on your dependency. Like, that's outside of our control. That's anyway, it's happening. So whether or not you should or shouldn't is beside the point.
Well, it's importing some compat module, so I'm wondering if it has to look at the version in order to work for one version versus the other. Like maybe it's having to use a different interface so that it supports like 1.4 and 2.0. So it needs to know the version or something. I mean, I agree it's a little bit like, you know, out of scope, but
Kelvin made a good point in that, like, should be non-voting jobs, because I added the same for S tester master testing in Tempest, but we added as like experimental and periodic jobs so that we keep checking if there is something breaking coming up. Making it voting obviously is a very
Yeah. I mean, if you have like a voting job on something master, then you basically need to make sure that basically master works. That's why. I mean, I understand. You want to verify that it continues to work with master. I mean, if you have a regression that every time there is a regression, then you get like the job having problems.
yeah,
So,
I mean, this is what you're asking for when you're testing a job against bleeding edge. So I mean, it is doing what it's supposed to be doing. I wouldn't call this a, you know, a gate stability issue unless it's highlighting something that is coming with the version once it is released as non-beta. So I mean,
So just to be clear, I didn't want to mention it like gate is it's gate problem. I just wanted to, like, it is kind of gate related, so I wanted to make people aware, but
okay,
it's totally fine that there is such issue.
what you're saying is you regret
time to
even
time.
bringing it up, right?
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate at least knowing having it linked in. I'll also note, just saying this in the Zoom meetings, it was mentioned in IRC. Fungi LinkedIn that they just released PBR 6.0.0, which added PEP 660 support, and I'm highly disappointed in them for not coming up with some reason to make it the 6th minor release of PBR 6.
Oh, there's still time, right? It can still
PBR
be
6.6.0 with PEP 660 support for maximum confusion. No, just but just keep an eye out as that changes.
The reason the major version was bumped is that some old setup tools docs building integration was dropped because setup tools itself doesn't support it anymore. Just want to call, like, that's the main behavior change, I think, is that one. And then there's a 660 PEP 660 on the side that will hopefully.
Jay is saying that you missed the opportunity to call it PBR 660 so that it matched PEP 660.
Yeah,
exactly.
And I'm disappointed that they're not all 666, but
I was hoping for that personally.
yeah, that's why I was saying there's still time to do that.
I don't know. Too many people already think PBR is evil. I think it'll be fine.
I think PEPs are evil, but
the next topic is leaderless projects. If you want to tell us the status of that right now, G-Man, if there's anything new since the PTG.
Yeah. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 PTL appointment proposal in the review. So I'll really appreciate if TC member can review, or Jay, if you can check if few of them are eligible to merge or not. One thing I would like to bring here and we can discuss is about Sahara. So the previous PTL volunteer for the PTL again, but this project gate was broken and all, as we discussed in PTZ. I'm marking this project as inactive also, but that doesn't stop the PTL appointment. So my idea is to merge the PTL appointment thing, but still mark project as inactive, and we keep eyes on that project if they are keeping the gate healthy, releasing till milestone 2. If all good, then we can remove it from the inactive list. So when I proposed the, when there was a PTL appointment and Frickler raised the point of gate health and all, so the PTL and I think one more maintainer there, so they merged all the things, even for the stable branch patches, which were hanging there for a couple of months or maybe longer time. So they sort of immediately fixed the things. So I'm just wondering if they, again, this project reviews are not happening on time or something. So still we mark this as inactive and give a good notification to them, like you have to keep up the things always, not just during the PTL appointment or anytime. So you can review those changes if you agree with this approach, marking project as inactive and still PTL can be appointed. So you can vote your vote on the Garrett. And yeah, also please review other PTL appointment things which are up. There is a discussion on rally PTL appointment also. So I'll really appreciate if other members also can participate there. I'll put all these link in Etherpad also, so one by one you guys can check the things. And yeah, that is all update from my side.
All right, thank you very much. All right, next up is implementation of unmaintained branch statuses. Was there something else before we moved on? No, okay. I had asked Rosmata to write something up about this. As like a possible email, just sort of getting a grasp on what's going on. That's been linked into the minutes, and the link is in the agenda as well. I'll also note that the project team guide PR has been updated. It has 2+2s on it from G-Man and myself. I believe that those docs are nearing readiness as well, if those can get reviewed. I think we've done a pretty good job of pulling this forward and going from having it, not close to implementation to having it relatively close to documented at least. So I appreciate the help that Christy and Rosmata have done with getting that done. I don't know what exactly there is to discuss about this now, other than, we definitely need to go over this Etherpad and these reviews asynchronously. I don't know if there's anything synchronous here to discuss. Is there?
So one thing I would like to discuss on stable yoga plan. Thanks, Brian, for preparing and reply. I was about to reply yesterday, but forgot again. So the plan is to postpone the stable yoga to move it to EM, or the plan is to move it to unmaintained before even our documentation is. Sorry.
Well, yeah, when I wrote this, I hadn't looked at the revised other patch yet, but the basic idea here was that, so let me back up. So what I'm trying to address is that we talked about having unmaintained stuff, but we haven't actually followed through yet. So I think it's important for us to declare officially on the mailing list that there are stable branches that are tagged EM that they fall under the unmaintained policy, and that's the way they're being treated. So the project teams don't have responsibility and all that stuff. So because of that, I think the thing to do is to make stable yoga. We should just tag it EM so that we can treat it like the other stable branches that have EM tags that we're declaring are unmaintained as of this moment. And then once we figure out exactly how the transition goes from stable /series to unmaintained /series, because I think we'll have to do it like a tag, a branch deletion, and a recreation. There's some, I think Garrett's a little bit different from Git, and I don't know what I'm talking about, but I think Jeremy could answer that. But anyway, we have some particular series of steps we're going to have to do, but we're going to have to do it for all of them. So my idea was that we just put out an announcement that, yeah, we're serious about the unmaintained. Yoga looks like all the other ones that are unmaintained at this point. And then at a time in the future that hopefully isn't too far, we'll go ahead and follow through on the transition.
Can I restate just to make sure I understand?
Oh, sure.
The idea is that we're going to treat yoga the way we would have if we hadn't passed this policy at all. We're going to promote it to extended maintenance, or demote it, whatever the correct term is. We're going to migrate it over to extended maintenance, at which point we will have a group of branches in extended maintenance that all can kind of be adjudicated atomically once we have the automation in place to deal with unmaintained branches, at which point we can send an email to a list saying, here's a list of EM branches. They're now unmaintained. We have a bunch of PRs open saying these are going to be EOL'd in a month if you don't opt in to keeping these unmaintained branches open. And so we can kind of take one atomic action, deal with all extended maintenance branches, which would then also include yoga, rather than having to deal with old branches. Yoga's a special case, and then everything new.
Yeah, that's basically it. I have a quibble, but that's basically the idea, is that we need to figure out what the process is and what the tooling is and test the tooling, and then we can do it all at once. But I think the important thing is to get the word out that the branches that are tagged EM are from now on are considered as being unmaintained, and the unmaintained policy applies to them, even though they're, the actual branch name hasn't been changed yet.
So Jeremy, I'm going to ask you to let G-Man go, since I kind of cut him off before and he's kind of in line. So then you.
Yeah, just one thing I'd like to bring, like, we are very close to moving these unmaintained thing, right? Either the documentation with Christie patches and all. So moving yoga to EM is not a very small work for release team. It has, they have to follow up a lot of things, release patches for release tag for every project repository. So that is a lot of work for release team. So if we say like, okay, you can tag stable yoga to EM now, and after 1 week, we say now we are going to do it, move it to unmaintained and all. So that's my concern. Can we avoid this EM work from the release team if we are going to unmaintained within this cycle or within month or so?
Yeah, that's a good point. That's why I did this as a draft in Etherpad, so that we can get some consensus before we send anything out. But yeah, we need somebody in the release team to say what they think about this.
Has anyone had a look at the actual automation to see how difficult implementing the unmaintained stuff would be in general? Like, is it like, I'm sorry, you're up.
To me?
Yes. I'm sorry. You were.
Oh, I just wasn't clear if Brian was asking questions about how implementable it is in the current automation, but basically right now you specify arbitrary branch names to create, tags to add, branches to delete in the release repository data files, and then most of that happens automatically when those changes are merged. The only thing that I'm aware of that currently requires manual intervention is branch deletions are not performed by the release jobs. They could be, but for safety reasons right now, a release manager reviews the list of branches that would be deleted and then runs a script to perform those delete actions, just to be extra careful. But as for the question about how to reduce the load on the release team, I think the best way to do that is to batch these up as much as possible. Doing a whole bunch of individual changes to EM branches of things is more work for them. It's more changes for them to review. It's more individual times they have to run branch deletion scripts and stuff. So if there are sets of these that can all be transitioned together, trying to group those helps minimize their work.
Just to be clear, when you say grouping those, you are not necessarily just talking about logical groupings. You're talking about literally like putting as many changes as possible in a single Garrett change request.
That would make sense. Yes, it's fewer changes for them to review that way, and then all of the branches that have to change as a result of that can be processed together. One other thing to keep in mind is that those changes currently require feedback from PTLs or release liaisons of teams. So while the release managers can override that requirement themselves, it's usually preferable that they don't. And so we're thinking about whether PTL or release liaison approval of those transitions is expected, or if that's something that would be worth writing into the automation to skip.
Given that it is explicitly meant to be an automated transition, I think that the default would need to be that with no PTL or release liaison action, that it would be retared. That the assumption would need to be in the case of one of these small projects where a PTL might not be responsive, that it just goes away.
So that's worth explicitly calling out to the release team in putting together this process documentation.
I'm going to put a comment in that project team guide change because I don't think the email Etherpad's the best place for it, but I want to make sure that that's noted somewhere.
On the second proposal from Brian in Etherpad, so the current resolution says like only the 3 latest EM branches to move to, the unmaintained, because that's what trade-off we did. Like we wanted only the slurp release to move to unmaintained, but because we have a lot of branches from pre-slurp thing also, so latest 3 was what we discussed, right, in resolution. I mean, I'm okay with like you're proposing we move all the EM to unmaintained, and if there are a maintainer, they can maintain, otherwise they can go to UL. But my concern is we should update the resolution for that, so that if we reflect the same thing, what we are going to do and what we passed in resolution.
Yeah, I guess I wasn't clear. So what I was thinking there was like right now, I think most projects have like 5 stable branches or 6 or something like that. So what I was thinking was we should encourage people to like prune them right now, right? Because once we have the tooling to switch to unmaintained /series, we're going to delete those things anyway. But maybe we could like make less work by
You mean
having.
Yeah, you mean get them to do what like Cinder was going to do and just say,
Exactly.
let's
Just,
go ahead and. I think that makes a lot of sense actually. That fits
but
with.
it sort of depends on it, the ordering of stuff here. So
It does
assuming we
fly
want
in the face of what Fungi just said about batching all this stuff up to make it easier for the releases team. If we waited until we had the automation, pressed the button, and did it for all the projects at once, it'll be easier on the releases team. I actually like your idea, with the exception of the fact it flies directly in the face of what Fungi just said.
Well, I think it sort of doesn't, because
That's what I was.
What I'm thinking is that like we would have a patch for Cinder that would get rid of,
A bunch,
TUVW, yeah, whatever, and we would encourage everybody to submit their patches by like a certain date. That's not listed here, but we could do that, and then that way, I think that would give the bunching that Jeremy was talking about.
That was what I was going to say. Was it seems like that is the bunching. Right, by doing a bunch of those things ahead of time for each of the projects that we would normally be doing anyway, but like one at a time, we're gonna whack off a bunch of the whole tail end of a bunch of releases at once.
Yeah, like if the Cinder team can put together a change that does all of their branched deliverable repositories and all of the branches that they want to close out at the same time, rather than separate changes for each deliverable or separate changes for each branch or whatever, then that'll help. We've still got something like 60 different official projects in OpenStack, but I doubt all of them will be doing this. Some of them don't do branching on their deliverables at all. Some of them also are just ignoring any of these discussions and will do whatever the default is forced on them in the end anyway.
So Sylvan, we could hack off a big tail of Nova stuff right now if Cinder was going to do it as well, right?
So for what is worth, we discussed that at the PTG, if you remember, talking that for the other guys. So basically, the consensus was to say usury is basically already like sold, and then there were concerns about like Victoria and Wallaby, but we eventually agreed on the fact that we are looking at Cinder. So if Cinder goes like purging all the stable branches by once, actually I wasn't thinking it should be done by one single patch, but if you're fancying doing it, I mean, I haven't yet made the action to delete usury, but I surely can prepare some purging as well on the Nova side. Anyway, I mean, just to be clear, that's not exactly like we really want to follow Cinder space. It's more like we know we can like use our stable branches with a specific Cinder tag. That may work, but what's exactly the purpose of like pinning our stable branches to some kind of tag release? I mean, for the sake of maintaining that branch, I mean, it's not like we have some kind of cross projects efforts and kind of, I know, CVEs that we do share in between teams. So yeah.
Yeah,
But
that's
I thought that
as-
we all agreed that if Cinder does, we could nuke all the way through Wallaby. Did I remember
Oh
that?
yeah, that was the agreement that was recorded. Yeah, basically, let's wait to see how Cinder goes. Maybe I should have said next cycle, but I'm pretty sure I can discuss with some of the contributors that was having concern about like having Victoria gone. But I mean, if Cinder, anyway, I think that specific that person understood the fact that once Cinder is basically sailing, then basically for us, we should do the same movement.
So the Cinder position was, once the unmaintained discussion got started, was we were not as concerned about the excessive stable branches as we had been. So the original proposal we made was to nuke all the way up through Xena. But I think after the long discussion, what we would do is leave. So what's left? W, X, and Y, right? Would be the three that we would leave. But that's assuming we've got the stable. Well, we do have.
You would leave them as unmaintained, you mean?
Exactly. But we wouldn't delete them. So the original proposal was we were deleting all the way through.
But are you going to continue to renew them?
No, then we're going to let, well, I can't speak for everybody.
Well, some.
But yeah, no, we're just going to let them die naturally according
So
to the.
not deleting, you mean just keeping them in an unmaintained slash, but stable slash Xena still will be deleted, right?
Right. So what so
the thing is, if
there's
not a
the series branch for Xena would still exist, I think, because we want to stay in. So our concern was, right, they were CVE fixes that had gone into some branches, and we didn't want them sitting around in case anybody tried to use the branch. But with the new unmaintained status, it's clear, right? We announce up front, we don't have any responsibility and all that kind of stuff. So we would stay in sync with everybody else. And what that would mean for right now is that we'd leave X, regardless of what the actual branch is called. So it would be the X release, the Y no.
W, X, and Y.
It would be W, X, and Y, right. Sorry.
But regardless, you leaving them there, unless there's a team that steps up to renew that lease at the next boundary, those are all going to go away anyway, right?
Well, whatever the schedule was, I forget whether it's one by one or a bunch at a time. But yeah, we would just let them naturally.
Yeah,
we would not.
But the old ones that
not opt in.
But the old ones that you leave in place that are older than the threshold would all go away the next time we have an epic that evaluates whether or not anyone steps forward or whatever, right?
Oh yeah, I guess, right.
So that's why I'm saying, like, it feels like unless there's a group of people that are already rallied around Wallaby or something like that, then that would be on the chopping block, So yeah, we could give, the most of a cycle left to have that happen, or we could, nuke them like we were originally going to do, and then let anything that survived that cutting off of the tail then proceed with the new
just
schedule.
to understand, so what we are going to do is W, X, and Y, we are going to move them from stable slash to unmaintained slash, and if there is someone continue to maintain, this stays, otherwise they can die, like whatever schedule we have. But for before W, everything will be just EOL. They will be not moving to unmaintained, right?
Well, that's what I was going to suggest, is not just not do anything now and let this huge long tail become unmaintained for likely 7 months, and then have them all flush down the toilet again in 7 months because there's nobody there to take them. Seems better to me to trim that before we let a bunch of things merge over personally, but
yeah, well, that sounds good. So,
I will note that one of the reasons we picked this shape for this was to give a almost visceral demonstration to the community that this patch sat open for a month, asking if anyone wanted this and was willing to do the work to make it happen, and nobody showed up, so we closed it. And that any sort of preemptive closing we do would take away some of that benefit. I'm not necessarily saying I disagree, just making that observation. I'm going to observe that we have 9 minutes left, and I do want to have time to talk about governance reviews and open discussion. So I'm going to time box this to 5 minutes to the top of the hour. Sylvain?
No. You know what? Let's punt that. Let's punt my question for now, because it was. I surely can discuss. I was not really knowing exactly about the cadence and whether the projects will be having the possibility to just get rid of their unmaintained branches once they are unmaintained, because basically if the PTL pass that to some other team, then who will be responsible for doing the cut? That was something that by looking at the resolution, I wasn't able to find. But you know what? Let's not bike shed on that now. And I mean, we can continue that next week if I have time to attend it.
All right. I just linked the resolution in there. I took a look at it just to see. We do explicitly say that at time of resolution, at the time of the transition, that we're going to keep the last three. So I think that the interpretation that everything behind, thing behind that gets chopped automatically, like, kind of makes sense as an interpretation of this. So that fits with me. Fits what we passed. Is there anything else we want to talk about in this before we move on to the next topic? All right.
So just sorry.
Yeah.
Go. So what do we want to do about this? I mean, do I need to revise it and then we'll send it out, or do we wait till next week?
Our actions right now, the remaining members of the TC who have not yet need to finish reviewing that project team guide change and land it. It would be nice if a single specific individual would take the action of coordinating with the releases team about the specific actions. I would ask, please let that be someone other than me, because I'm still doing PTG follow-up for TC and Ironic stuff. I've just been extremely busy. I just got off of the end of some of that. So
all right, I'll do that. And I'll keep people posted in the TC channel as I hear stuff back. But I'll just ping Elod and see what he thinks of this.
So the next topic, and I'm gonna just breeze through this. We have a PTG follow-ups. I'm just gonna note, and I'll put this in there. I'll be sending out an email in the next calendar week to the mailing list with a summary of TC PTG things and transitioning any things we'll be tracking, including the thing we just talked about, into the TC tracker. All right, last topic is open discussion and reviews. I'm going to note that shortly after this meeting, it's my intention to land any changes that are eligible for landing in the governance repository. So, hurry up and get your -1s on anything that you don't want to land. I'm looking right now. I had the link to that. Where is it? There it is. Okay, sorry, trying to find that. So please do go have a look at those reviews, including leaderless projects and things of that nature as well. Is there anything else for open discussion? That's a good one. Fun Guy is saying there's a PTG recap episode. I encourage you, if you're PTL or otherwise knowledgeable of a project, go talk about the PTG, billboard it. Maybe that'll help us get more folks coming next time.
I also, before that, I linked the Etherpad for crowdsourcing newsletter items for OpenStack. I need those tomorrow. I've got to finalize content for it.
Okay, thank you. I'll see if I can unearth something for you.
One question regarding this PTG recap. Do you think it would be useful if TC would be one of the kind of projects doing update there, or not?
I think anybody who wants to participate, honestly, would be welcome.
I was thinking about volunteering to do TC in addition to Ironic, but I wanted to do the summary for the mailing list first to make sure that there was something meaty there. And quite frankly, I wanted to talk to y'all, because if nothing else, I was going to make a comment along the lines of how the TC performs decision making, because we did have a whole session where there was a confusion about what happens in a TC meeting, and just have a conversation of, hey, TC meetings are, meant to accelerate discussion and help us reach consensus, but real decision making happens in Garrett's, it happens in commits. Never feel like because you missed a meeting that you missed your opportunity to participate in decision making. So I'll probably, that's a good idea. I thought about doing it. If there's no objection, I'll happily represent TC there as well.
Thanks.
Three minutes left. Anything else?
Just from my project perspective, I need to write some in my release notes, the deprecation notes we had in Bobcat, because this is Slurp and operators should know what we did in Bobcat. We discussed like 6 months ago about any kind of Reno tooling for that. I guess there was no traction on that. So just to be clear, I'm just going to do something manually. No recognitions that I missed, or nothing else by that.
No, you haven't missed anything, I don't think.
Cool. Okay, then I still need to figure out what's the best approach for this, because release notes are shipped with the changes, and I don't want the change to be forward ported to that. So maybe just, I don't know, maybe just a single copy of a file or something. I mean, I don't know. I still have to figure that out, but yeah.
Okay, I think the I don't know, there's some document somewhere that says something about creating a static file.
Oh, surely
Okay.
that's what I think. I think I would just run the docs job and create like a single empty file and just copy the content.
Yeah.
That's a bit ugly, but yeah, that's the okay, cool enough.
Yeah, that's
I
the
would do that.
documented process. It is a little bit ugly, but I think it's the least ugly of a array of ugly options.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I was considering. I mean, I don't know. I'm doing this kind of prelude thing every cycle. So I mean, I don't know. Okay, fair enough. If there is nothing like cross project that has been identified, cool enough.
All right. Well, we're at time. Thank you all for attending. I'll have this up on YouTube later this afternoon.